Welcome to the Tuesday reading for the 5th week of Lent in the book Our Radiant Redeemer by Tim Chester. And the verse we look at, which Tim has put, is 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 4, which says, "They will say, 'Where is this coming he promised?' Ever since our ancestors died, everything goes on as it has since the beginning of creation." The doubters, that is. Here's another puzzle that the Transfiguration throws in our direction. Did it take place 6 days or 8 days after the words of Mark chapter 9 verse 1? We've seen how significant it is that Mark begins his account with "after 6 days." Verse 2. Mark 9. It links the Transfiguration to the promise of Christ's return, and perhaps also suggests that Jesus is the beginning of a new humanity, revealed on the 6th day, just as Adam was created on the 6th day. So why does Luke say the Transfiguration took place about 8 days after Jesus said this in Luke chapter 9 verse 28? At one level, it's a historical question. How many days later was it? Is Mark correct or Luke? The answer is to recognize how ancient people spoke of the passing of days. For example, the Bible often speaks of Jesus being raised on the 3rd day. But in fact, today we would describe Sunday as 2 days after Friday. How you count an interval of time depends on whether you choose to include the days of the first and second events. You'd have to include Friday. So say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to make it 3. Luke's 8 days and Mark's 6 intervening days, plus the day on which Jesus was speaking, plus the day on which Jesus was transfigured. Don Carson, in his book Matthew, Mark, Luke, the Expositor's Bible Commentary, Volume 8, edited by Frank E. Gabellin, page 384, Don Carson says that Luke's phrasing, quote, is based on a Greek way of speaking and means about a week later. So Mark and Luke are both right. They're just using slightly different ways of counting. But Luke's inclusion of 8 days also raises a theological question. What does Luke's choice to spotlight 8 days reveal about his message? I, the author, think the answer is that 8 is 7 plus 1. I know you knew that already. Here's the point. The world was made in 6 days. On the 7th day, God rested. That means the 8th day is when the process begins again. For Luke, this doesn't mean week 2 in the history of the world. For Luke, this means a new creation in which the world is made new. God made the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. Now on the 8th day, he is beginning to remake the world. And going slightly off course. If you pay attention, if you ever watched the early 1980s, not the 9 o'clock news, according to Rowan Atkinson, he said God created the earth in 6 days. On the 7th day he rested, and on the following day, in the morning he got up. He got up as normal on the 8th day and created famous celebrity. I'm not going to name her, but those who have watched it will know who I am, know who I'm talking about. So now on the 8th day, he is beginning to remake the world. If that's correct, then the Transfiguration is not just an anticipation of the future of Christ, it's also an anticipation of Christ's new humanity and his new world. Christians are heading for glory, and for a brief moment in history, on the Mount of Transfiguration, we were given a glimpse of that coming glory. The Transfiguration anticipates the triumph of God's kingdom and God's king. This may be one reason why Peter spotlights the Transfiguration in 2 Peter verse 1. The return of Christ is what was being disputed among Peter's readers. Scoffers will come, warns Peter, saying, "Where is this coming he promised?" That's the verse we started with. As we've seen, Peter refers to the story of the Transfiguration in 2 Peter 1 verses 16 to 18 to show that the apostles were eyewitnesses of what had taken place in the past during the first coming of Jesus. Well, one reason Peter chose to focus specifically on the Transfiguration is that this story shows the apostles were also witnesses of what will be in the future. The future promises of the Bible are confirmed by the foretaste they received at the Transfiguration. We can be sure Christ will return in glory because humanity has already glimpsed his glory on the mountain. Look around the world today and you will see what Peter's readers saw. Everything goes on as it always has. It's easy for the return of Christ to feel like a distant reality that makes little difference to my Tuesday morning, our Tuesday morning. But when we look at the Transfiguration, we see heaven pushing into earthly realities, like a nail gently pushing into a balloon. One day heaven will burst through, and the new age will dawn. And our meditation is from the 4th century theologian, St. Basil the Great, in his homily on Psalm 45 verse 5, which is cited in Michael Ramsey's book, The Glory of God and the Transfiguration of Christ, page 131, where it says, "Peter and the sons of thunder saw his beauty on the mountain, outshining the brightness of the sun, and they were deemed worthy to receive the anticipation of his glorious coming with their eyes." So, tomorrow, which will be done tonight because of the busyness of tomorrow, the verse is 1 Corinthians 13 verse 12, and the meditation is 1 John chapter 3 verses 2 to 3. So now we know why 8 days comes into it. I had been anticipating that for quite some time. So, as always, may God bless you and keep you. Amen.